what's up? Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you.
Yay! How's it going? I was just responding to you and the coordination for strategy team.
I
Uh,
found it.
what did you find?
The link. I was used to getting it out of the national server. Um,
Oh yeah, because I
yeah,
didn't have the link on the national server yet.
yeah, it got taken down, so I was trying to find it. I found it.
It's actually there. It's just like way at the bottom. I scheduled it for like next week or whatever.
Got it.
You say not. All right.
When are you
Oh, there you
leaving?
when you were thinking of my fish. This is the message. Yes, I'm on. I'm on now. Cool. All right, so I'm leaving on Friday. So Thursday's my last day in the United States. I've lots of family in Spain. My great grandfather and my great grandmother fled from the Spanish Civil War, Franco.
Wow.
So, anyways, the family seems to be happy that we're at least planning for worst case scenarios. But I'll be back in a few months, and then if things get worse, or I just like depending on like me and my husband, like we might spend some more time there in 2026. But I don't know. It just all depends. We're trying to figure it all out. Like it's really complicated.
Yeah.
Like just the whole process of migrating and just like getting residency and trying to get citizenship, and it's just all crazy. So it's just like learning about it all and finding it out just in case things got worse and worse here in the United States. You just got to be prepared.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but for
Yeah.
now it's just going and trying to check things out, seeing. But the main reason, like we're in California, right? And it's literally like in the Bay Area, we're talking like $3,500 for rent.
For like a one bedroom or a
Yeah, like
studio.
a one bedroom
Yeah.
studio thing. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so like
Crazy.
you go to Spain and it's like they have full rent controls and they have like all these different like social systems, and you can
Yeah.
get rent between $500 to $1,000 a month in a lot
Yeah.
of places, and even cheaper if you go to some pueblo in the middle of nowhere. But it's like we're talking about going to like a city like on the coast or like somewhere where like there's actually people there. So obviously you
Yeah.
can get cheap places in the United States if you literally go to the middle of nowhere or go to some conservative, like very, very conservative place. So
Yeah.
anyways, that's one of the main reasons why we have to consider just the economic, because it's just like it's so expensive in California. It's
Yeah,
like
for
crazy. And
sure.
then his family's in Washington D.C., like or like Virginia, right near D.C., and it's just very
Yeah.
expensive there too. So like whether we go
Oh yeah.
to Virginia or whether we're staying here, it's just super duper expensive, and it's like I don't know. Ugh. Anyways, I just totally dependent on other people for living, food, rent, all that stuff. I mean, trying to make enough money to pay rent is just insane these days.
Yeah.
It's cray cray.
It is. I hope that your prospects in Spain treat you well, and are fruitfully abundant, and bring you joy and camaraderie and all that good stuff.
For sure, dude. I mean, I've been to Spain many times, and I just have lots of family there, like all my cousins and aunts, and just so it's
That's cool.
exciting. And the parents are going, so helping the parents and everything too. It's gonna be a whole family, and my brothers are gonna be there, and like nieces. It's gonna be a whole family reunion, so it's like a whole thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I'm really happy to hear that. I know the last couple of weeks here have been stressful with the GSUS stuff, at least.
Oh, GSUS is always a little stressful, but that's the way it's supposed to be. That's why I love talking with you, because you understand it. You understand that the passion and the energy and the momentum, it's just all part of it. And it's just like sometimes it's frustrating and sometimes you want to rip your head off, but other times it's like, oh my God, we did it. And it's like amazing. So
Yeah.
it's like all of the above. All of the above. So
Yeah.
I would love to chat about global, and I'd love to chat about. Let's make a list of like our. So I have the notes
Yeah.
here, and I just like to make a list. So let me find the notes. Boom, notes. So this will be like info, and then I can also share my screen, so I have the notes showing. But so possible topics. So we don't have to like get agreement on topic, but we can just list some of the cool things. So obviously we have like planning and Spain and personal blah blah blah. So if you have anything personal you want to check in on, that was my check-in basically. So you can do your check-in.
Oh, yeah. So I went to a convention this past weekend.
Oh, wow.
And that was very fun. Also really hard because the building was not accessible. made a lot of complaints. I went to the help desk and I said, you need to take the wheelchair signs off of your bathrooms. And they said, no, we're required by law to have them. And I said, no, you're required by law to have accessible bathrooms that are clearly marked. You're not required by law to mark unaccessible bathrooms as accessible. You're going to kill someone.
Jeez, how are they not
yeah,
accessible again? Or there's like a step or something, or what was it?
It was the doors, the buttons on the outside didn't work. And there were no buttons on the inside to open the doors. The doors weighed like 50 pounds.
Oh,
It was impossible. I was in a chair because of my legs gave out this week, so I was in a chair for the convention, and it was a nightmare. None of the bathrooms I used had doorways that were usable by someone in a chair without help.
Crazy. That's
Zero.
Absolutely insane.
I tried 5 different ones.
What? Oh my god.
I got trapped in 3 of them, but
Oh
the other
my
2 I had help for.
Ugh, jeez, that's
Yeah,
insane.
it was a nightmare.
And this was at a convention center? What?
Yeah, in Boston, like the biggest
In
convention center in,
Boston?
like the Boston Convention Center. Yeah.
It's so silly how things just like go under the radar, you know? And it's like, what? It's probably like, other people have complained too. It's impossible.
Oh yeah,
that
definitely.
you-
But I complained to everyone, and I'm really good at complaining,
Nice.
so it'll get fixed now.
Good.
It has to, because I submit complaints to the ADA. I was told every single volunteer at the event. I told the hotels, like the convention center staff, and the info desk, and I made a complaint in my review, and I wrote a bunch of ADA statements that I already submitted. So it's getting dealt with one way or another. I did my part.
Very cool.
Yeah, like one person saying to one person this isn't cool is a complaint, but it doesn't go as far as what I did.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to pull a whole shenanigans, because it's like, people get hurt. People are like, and you just don't want. It's not about us. It's not about you. It's not about them. It's about the next 100 people who have the same problem. So
100%.
it's just like you gotta just deal with it and figure it out. So I don't know. Some people kind of get all piffy-whiffy about it, but I love it. I love to hear that. Just taking action into our own hands. Like that's the only way things get fixed.
That's what we're here to do.
Exactly.
And then on the way home, we smelled burning rubber. So we pulled over, and the tire on the front passenger side was all melted. So I took the tire off to put the spare on, and the wheelbase of the tire is like hanging on by a thread. So now I'm currently sitting outside of KFC waiting for a tow truck, and just glad that we didn't get into an accident after the wheel fell off, which was what would have happened if we kept going.
Wow.
Yeah, good day.
Well, if you need to go, just let me know if the group gets there.
Yeah,
Fire.
Yeah, I mean, I will let you know if they get here. Honestly, I'm just like, and the conflict in Massachusetts is still conflicting, which is like, it's been 3 weeks. This should be done by now.
Well, that was one of my things on my list, was state chapters, California, Massachusetts, like kind of chatting about that. And then there's the global and the partnership.
Yeah.
There's
Let's have a global.
the
I'm tired of
communication.
Massachusetts right now. I'll get back to it before we end, but.
All right, we'll start with global stuff. So, obviously, when I first got involved 6 months ago, that was like immediately just boom, international channel, and talk to everybody and like hey, do you want to schedule? Let's do this, let's do that. And I put all of my focus on international, of course, right? Because it's all about it.
Sure.
And I do lots of everything I also do is always like international. Not that it's successful or anything, but I always try. So in the context of like the international channel, it was a little weird. It was like I didn't really get much like vibe, and then there was 2 main things that happened that were kind of like, ooh. Like one was that they were like someone was basically like, oh, you're in the United States, you're not allowed to be part of this. And I was like, what? Like the United States is part of the world. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So that was like the first thing. And then the second thing was just like, I got a bunch of complaints that were like, not a bunch, but like 1 or 2 people. There's not a lot of people on the international channel, but like they were just like you need to stop pinging us about these meetings that are not during our time, And I'm like, well, someone could show up. It's like, sorry that it's not in the time, but that you have to deal with that globally. So then I set together there's like the 4 quadrants. So whenever we do global organizing, we have 4 quadrants. You have basically Americas, which is North and South Central America. Then you've got your Africa, which is Europe and Africa. You got Austrasia, which is like Australia and Asia. And then you have the Pacific, which is huge, which is basically Hawaii and like some other random islands in the Pacific and Alaska, right?
Yeah.
So basically, those are like the 4 quadrants that are the typical 4 time zones that we would schedule on. And so when I go to Europe, I'm going to focus specifically on your Africa, where there's the most people who've kind of connected into that within Europe. And then there's also already a group in Canada, and there's also a Canada 50-51 group, right? So because Canada and the United States have a very, very close relationship, that has already been established. And so I did go over to the Canadian group and, you know, give them some outreach and see if they wanted to schedule and see what was going on. I never really got much, you know, kind of vibe on that, so it didn't really happen, and they were mainly focused on 50-51 and just other things, but they did get it set up, which was cool, you know. So that was exciting. But anyway, so that's basically as far as I got with Global, because there was just no one wanted to schedule, no one wanted to really do any sessions at that time. So my whole assumption is that probably at this time maybe there'll be more, right? There'll be more people, a few more interested, and so then I will do like a full scheduling round because I have practice with the strategy team, I have practice with California, so I'm gonna do like a full scheduling. I'm gonna wait till I get there so I know when I will be available, so that when we do schedule, it's productive. You know, we don't want it to be scheduled a time that I can't be there, and then it's like people just fall apart, it'd be disastrous, right? So that's pretty much it. You know, on the global side of things, it's not particularly, you know, obviously not active. There's nothing going on. The only other thing I can say is that I did do the entire thing of setting up everything for the global 50-51 as well, right? And obviously that was much, much later. That was more like 2 months ago. That led to me getting banned from 50-51. Although I actually didn't get banned at all for the global stuff. I got banned for the California stuff. So, so in the context, I mean, I'm still talking to them even today. Like that was my whole thing today was like an hour before this call was just ranting and going insane with 50-51, because this very, very nice lady who's like a liaison between 50-51 and GSUS, or at least in California, is she's called A Human Being, I think is her Discord. And, and she,
I know who you mean.
Yeah, and she is just like totally against the fact that I got banned, and then she was bringing up today this whole new thing going on where at May Day on May 1st, like some guy got arrested, and I'll, you know, not give the whole story, but basically, you know, people were speaking out and trying to protect him from the arrest, and 50-51 was attacking him and saying like he is wrong and he's gonna get banned, and then they were trying to ban everybody that was supporting him.
Oh yeah, great.
And she is this like, this is outrageous. You can't ban people for simply speaking up about what they believe in. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that sounds like Massachusetts' problem too right now.
What? What's going on in Massachusetts? Like, what is going on?
I have been trying so hard not to talk about this until it's resolved, because I'm not trying to make small issues everyone's problem. But like,
how can they ban people for just having their own points of view? Like, what's going on with that?
Well, they can't. They can't. Okay. So what's happening is, the national mods are involved now, and we're having a mediation.
Wow.
And I have the most recent thing I was asked to state my my issues and my proposed solutions, which I did, and I feel like my issues are very valid and my solutions are pretty functional. Their issues and solutions proposal was mostly like I was mean by giving constructive criticism, and it's really not cool that I keep attacking them like this, and it's just like personal ego stuff, and I'm so tired. That's how I feel about it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the mediation says. I'm not trying to, I think this is like a waste of time. I feel like I showed up. I gave constructive criticism. It was not received well, but I was told to then put it in a meeting agenda. So I did that, and then I was told that I was filling up the meeting agenda. And then I was uninvited from the meeting that I was supposed to talk about it because I was too mean before that, I guess.
Yeah, that's just crazy. But
I don't feel like I'm a mean person. I feel like I'm direct, and I guess maybe I could have like said it nicer, like compliment sandwich, like thank you for all your hard work, and I tell you your heart is in the right place, but here are some areas for improvement. Like I could have probably phrased it nicer, but I wasn't mean. I was just like, hey, thanks for inviting me. I have some concerns. Here's what they are. It was not mean. mean. You know what I mean? It wasn't an attack. It was like, okay, I'm concerned about this, this, and this. This is why this is important. Let's talk about a solution. Here are some ideas, but it doesn't have to be my way. We can talk about it, what's best, and figure out a solution. And they were like, stop talking. I was like, eventually I was like, are you silencing me? Like, is this silence of dissent? Because dissent is a core principle of GSUS. And then they were just, then they stopped talking to me. And so I went to the mods, and then they didn't like that, and they've referred to my talking to the mods about literally the situation as like shit talking. And I'm like, what is shit talking? Can you quote me where I was talking shit? Like, because all I said was like, you did not read. I think it's inappropriate that you did not read the code of conduct or the welcome packet or the website or any of our resources before running meetings. I said that. It is inappropriate, I think, to use the GSUS name and misrepresent everything we're doing in an authoritarian system of 3 people making unilateral controlled decisions without any oversight, having like, even in the signal chat of 11, when they decided to ban me from the meeting, it was 3 of them had a private conversation. It wasn't all 11 of them talked about it and a majority voted to exclude me. I would have been much more comfortable with that if they were like, there's too much friction, let's resolve it first. Or if one of them had reached out to me privately and said like, I'm running this meeting and you make me uncomfortable, and for my personal comfort, I am requesting that you give me the space to do this meeting without you there. I would have said yes. I would have said, I respect that boundary. Thank you for communicating with me. Right? Like, even if I didn't like it, it's not about me. It's not about them. It's not about blame. It's about the community and our project of this movement. Like, I don't care that my feelings were hurt. I don't care that I am also stressed and fatigued and totally fucking beat by these 3 people being very cruel to me. And slinging accusations, and included among the accusations is that I'm so mean and I'm so slinging accusations. It just feels like gaslighting and like there was the DARPA or whatever, the reversal of victimhood, right? Like they're saying that I'm doing all the things that they're doing to me, and I'm so tired. But I don't even, I don't have a grudge about that. I just want this to stop. Like, I just want to get to work. If they want to be like in charge of like the bureaucracy of the meetings, that's fine. I mostly want to teach people the garden and like, do events. I made a whole event about like a free store and education liberation event where we're going to have people bring stuff and trade stuff and people run workshops, and I've already got people signing up to do things like that. And like that, I haven't even told the Western Massachusetts group because they would just shut me down or co-opt it, and I'm so tired.
Wow. Okay, so a couple things here. One is it's not a waste of time to do the mediation, right? Because the mediation itself is an experience for everyone. So even if you don't have a good experience, again, it's good experience for the moderators to get to see how it goes. It's good experience for everybody, the whole organization and the network, right? So even if it's not fruitful, it's still good to go through it because it's even if it's practice, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I clarify something though?
Please.
What I think is, I don't think the mediation is a waste of time. I think what's a waste of time is the 3 of them are refusing to meet unless all 3 of them can be there, and their schedules don't align at any time. So they keep putting in the wind to meet totally different schedules. I feel like it's collaborated to be unavailable to each other. They've switched moderators 3 times. So we keep having to get new people caught up on what's going on, because then a moderator will say, well, I think Story's right, and then they're like, you're biased, and they want to change. I don't think.
Wait. Did you just say that the moderator is bringing in from national, and then they say that the moderator is biased, and that's the end of story? That's possible?
So what happened? I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand your phrasing of it. Let me try again.
You just said that they got rid of the moderator. That you've gone through multiple moderators because they said that the moderator was not neutral.
Right. Correct. But
and this is
I don't think that's true.
Moderator.
Yeah, they're national moderators. It's Dalian who runs the welcome meeting.
Well, but how do
It's
they have the
Dane.
power to do that? I've never heard that before.
Who?
How do these 3 people who are refusing to meet have the power to just discard the moderator?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, so they didn't like Dalian, who I brought in. I picked Dalian because Dalian and I have fought a lot. More than any other mod, I have fought with Dalian. We have butted heads over and over. He knows I can be an asshole. I was specifically looking for the least biased moderator because I knew they were going to say this and I wanted to protect them. I knew that the take was going to be, the mod is taking your side unfairly. But really, the mod is taking the side of decentralization and dissent, which they are objecting to. They should not be in GSUS. But I'm going to let the moderators say that, because that's not my place. All I can say is this is my concern, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so they didn't like Dalian because he believes in decentralization and dissent, and then they didn't like Dane because they believe in decentralization and dissent. And then now we're on TT, who has said very little. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. So then now TT is in there. TT hasn't said very much at all to me. So I'm assuming hasn't said much to them either, and therefore is still in the running. Right? Has not been. They haven't decided that TT is bad because TT hasn't said anything. But I understand what the conflict is, and it's not about me being too mean. The issue is that we alienated a ton of new people that came to a meeting. Like the first issue that happened was they had a meeting, 17 people showed up, they floundered, they wasted people's time and you know and made everyone feel alienated and like made people vote on stuff they didn't have context for. And then when people asked questions, I wasn't allowed to answer them, even though I had the answer. So then when I after the meeting, 2 days later, I got into the Signal chat and said, hey, here are my concerns, directly to the organizers. They didn't like that. They said, put it in the agenda. I put it in the agenda. They didn't like that. Then they uninvited me from the meeting and changed moderators 3 times. So that's where we are.
Wow. Okay, so for me, it's so helpful to hear more context, because this is the second time I've heard you talk about this, and then there's a little in writing.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting different this time that I did not understand from before, and also with my experiences with California that have been evolved since last time we talked. There's just so much overlap, and there's so many interesting. Obviously, California, we have no conflict and no concerns. But there is some.
Ever.
Whatever. No, we do have issues, but
yeah, I know.
But you know, mainly just like lack of passion and leadership, and other things, and just I don't know how fast or whatever. Anyway, we can talk about that later. But the point that I'm trying to make is that what I'm hearing from you and what I've experienced myself is that this is like core to the entire national issue. This is not a Massachusetts issue. This is a national issue. Period. Right? And anyone to say, oh, that's just their problem, it doesn't understand like the bigger picture of things, right? So
right.
So yeah, so let me write this down. National issue for sure. So if we go through a couple things here, for one, I would say that there's a major red flag in the mediation process for the network and the whole movement, because the idea of being able to just, one, not refusal to meet, and two, to be able to discard the moderator, those are 2 major red flags that is so rare. I have only heard that maybe once in like 30 years, 20 years, 20, 30 years, 25 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is insane. So a couple
that
things
is issue
here.
3 of 4. I have 4. There are 4 issues, and literally that is it.
Yeah.
The refusal to meet.
Yeah. So under you know, I like to bring up some of our co-op policies. We've been doing this in the co-op for so long. And the models that I've used and the models that we implement are the Quaker models, right, of consensus. Mm-hmm. And under Quaker, you know, basically law or whatever you call it, policies, if you refuse to meet, you're out immediately. It's just like automatic. Like there's no, like the refusal to address grievances and address issues is basically seen as anti-democratic, and it's just an automatic disqualification and automatic removal. right? So if you're
They
unwilling to
haven't
come to the
outright,
table,
they haven't openly said that they're refusing. They just are all picking different times that they're available
but-
and will
but-
only meet if they're all
but
there.
that is an excuse. What should
Yeah.
be allowed, right? It's like each
Yeah.
one of them
Yeah.
individually should be able to address the situation, and if they're not
Mhm.
willing to address it as an individual, then it's manipulation. Right?
Yes, that's what I agree with. I agree with you.
So
And I
there's
don't know
not-
who to say that to or how to say it.
Exactly. That's why it's a national issue. So it's not clear what the in you know in the like the facilitation training and the working that I had done with the civil rights movement and the environmental movement from like 50s and 60s, right? This is how I got my training in facilitation and we're organizing. When I was in college, I worked with all these different groups. And it's all about these two things, which is basically you have manipulation, and then the other one is called acting out. So acting out and manipulation are not something that you address through conflict resolution and conflict mediation because they're actually against the policy of the organization itself. So when you do mediation and specifically conflict resolution, you are not addressing policies. You're addressing communications. And when you're addressing something related to acting out or manipulation, you're not addressing conflict resolution, you're addressing policies, right? That they're actually policies. So this is where we get to the problems in the national level where the policies are not clear. The system of addressing issues are not clear. And if a state falls apart and it gets ripped apart in conflict, there should be a national stage to address the issue, which doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, we're creating it right now. Actually,
Ooh, tell me about this. The communications. You
Yeah.
mentioned the communications.
Yeah, so there's a communications team that we started literally yesterday.
Wow.
Because we have enough people and we're all aware that there are communication issues. So our main goal is just making sure information gets to who it needs to get to, that chapters and teams and national circles and partners are all getting the data that they need, and that it is easy to ask someone, hey, I need this thing, and then you could just ask communications and then they find it, and we can streamline the process of doing that to make it even a little bit automated in some cases, right?
Yeah.
So that's a process, but we're having our first meeting sometime at the end of next week or the beginning of the one after.
Okay.
So we just started that, and then Day asked me to be part of. I'm just gonna read what Day said to me. I wanted to do a GSOS call-in. I feel we need to nip some things in the bud before moving on. There have been several isolated events causing us to stagger away from the objective. There's infighting, ineffective communication, derailing from taking... What?
I would just remind you that if it's not in an overall open discussion, it's a DM, just flag, just reminding you, just referring to what you're reading,
That is fair. But I think
just summarize.
yeah,
Try to summarize as opposed to read verbatim. So that we don't have that issue. But yeah.
Thank you. No, that's fair. And pre-apologize. I'm not trying to spill someone's personal. This felt like a copy paste, which is why I was reading. But I will summarize.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm not the only one that got this message, right?
Totally.
But yeah, essentially putting together team building workshops involving restorative justice and revolutionary discipline, self-discipline. So that's the target, right?
Wow. Yeah, very powerful.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, I love Day. Day's one of my
Yeah.
besties on here.
Yeah. Oh my God. Of course. So the communications team sounds like it can actually address a lot, especially in the structural context, right? So that's one of the things I've been saying is that, okay, we jumped, and in essence, my experience through the strategy team and addressing decision making and addressing issues and problems, kind of was like not dead ended, but it was like, okay, yes, decision making is important, but if you don't have structure and communication set up first, it's irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
So basically, now getting the communications team set up, and that might take a couple months, right, to really see it come together and evolve.
Correct.
That will be, in essence, the solution to the structural considerations of making sure everything is connected and that everyone has a place to go to communicate I would love to see that evolve to like a national, circle or national communications circle that even goes to the level of decision making, but that can come afterwards. So once we get the
Well,
communication part
let me.
handled, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is for on the national scale that we're talking.
Well, yeah, it's a communications team, but it seems to me like it could potentially still report to something else, like a national circle. Because my sense, what I'm getting from you, is that the communications team would be equal to all the other teams, like the outreach team and the social media team, the strategy team, except the fact that the goal of the communication team is to link all the other teams together. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I do like the context that the communication team would be have equal coexistence with all the other teams, and so it's possible that a model for potential decision making in the future could be that the communications team could implement the empowerment of where and when decisions are made, not top down. So that could mean like, okay, this issue is being addressed, and the communications team can say, okay, everyone needs to be communicated with that this issue is going to be addressed within, for example, the outreach team because it has to do with this. And the outreach team will be empowered to address this, and then it will report back to the communications team, and then we will transfer the information out to everybody. So in that way, the communications team doesn't take national power from everybody, but it could have the ability to help direct decision making in a way that could be very fruitful without having power over decision making, So that is potential. But anyway, I still think that's like 3 or 4 months out. Like first you get the communications team set up.
Did I get cut off?
Oh, sorry. I was talking about that it might take 3 or 4 months to address that decision making part, but that the communications team could help with that distributing decision making, distributing power. Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me, Mike.
Yeah, I can hear you again now.
My Wi-Fi is not. Yeah. Yay! Okay. Yeah, the Wi-Fi cut out for a minute, and my phone is dying, so I plugged it in, and now it should handle it a little better.
Nice.
Should
I repeat myself?
Can you repeat what?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Justin, I got what you were saying about that as a decentralized tool, the communications team can help sort of disseminate information in a way that puts people together. That I don't know.
So
they got cut off. I think where you're going.
The first step would be building the communications team to improve communications throughout the entire network, right? So that's happening, which is amazing.
Yes.
Then maybe 3-4 months from now, as the communications team starts pulling together more and more issues and more decisions that need to be made and nowhere for them to make because it's basically kind of dead ends there, then the communications team, because it's equal to all the other teams, like the outreach team, the tech team, and the strategy team, instead of taking power and or creating a national team where all decisions are made, the communications team could instead help build the model of a power distribution model where basically as issues come in that are flagged and documented, instead of the communication team or a national group having power over them, it would help distribute power and say, okay, this issue is related to the outreach team because it's an outreach issue, and we empower the outreach team to oversee this, and then we communicate with everybody across the network. This issue and this decision is being made by the outreach team, so go to this meeting to address it, right? So
hold on, I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, take it in.
Sorry about that.
Are you all right? My goodness.
Well, sometimes when I cough a lot, I lose oxygen and have a seizure. So little seezy. I'm okay.
Wow. Well, take your time. No hurries here.
What'd you say?
Take your time. Like no hurries here. Like health always comes first. So.
Yeah.
You got some water or anything? Or...
Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Yeah, feels great. Okay.
And if you need to go, just let me know. And if we want to take a break, I actually usually take breaks at the bottom of every hour and the top of every hour. So we do 5-minute break twice an hour. That's like our usual. That's our usual model because like I'm 45. I can't sit in a meeting for 3 hours without being totally deeshed. I'm just like, oh, it hurts. You know? Like,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Yeah.
these meetings go on forever sometimes. Anyway,
Yeah.
so it just depends on but the Pomodoro, that's what it is. The Pomodoro is very good to take breaks and drink water, go to the bathroom, you know, so that everything's sort of synchronized. Anyways, just take your time. Let me know when if you wanna jump out.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to pull up my Proton, but it's not liking the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
There is did you see I already shared the link. You could just look at it yourself if you were so inclined. But in the strategy team, I made the agenda for Monday. Let me see if I can pull it down. That's not
Yeah,
the
and
right.
I'm planning on not being there on Monday, so just so you know.
That's okay, but I would love your opinion on my priorities because you are smart and experienced.
Well, I'm going right now into the Proton Drive. I found the agenda, and I'm also.
Oh, you found the.
Yeah, I found it, and I'm also gonna copy. Oop, jeez, I did it twice. I'm gonna copy and paste this and put it in the agenda. Whatever you call it, the agenda thread.
Yeah. So this is what people, including myself, wanted to talk about this week.
All right, so I have,
if you scroll down.
Attendance. I have established meeting notes, reinstate mission strategy statement, restate mission strategy statement, intros and check-ins, national website demands form, guidelines for prioritizing, communications team, GSUS national mission statement.
Yeah. So if you go down, you can read it all the way if you want to, but I'm most interested in your opinion on the prioritizing.
Prioritizing ideas. So prioritizing ideas, priority 4. Set priority guidelines. Top priority is happening within the community example. So are these priorities for strategy team or priorities for national?
This is for strategy team, but it could potentially be expanded to other teams that found this helpful. I find that we do a lot of like cart before horse. So this is me trying to solve that and say we deal with active harm first, and then like potential harm next, and then like missing opportunities and time sensitive stuff next, and then like structure and foundation next, and then like inter-community involvement, and then like growth and long-term plans.
Fascinating. Okay, so, I'm always on growth and long-term plans, you know? So I would say, I would flip some of these. Can I edit this? Let's see.
Yeah. I can't access my Proton right now, but if you wanted to copy this, I will move. You could make a new one.
It's very simple, right? It says number 1, top priority. Number 2, time relevant. Number 3, time relevant. Number 4, this is necessary, right? I would just switch them. So that number 1 is harm is happening within the community, top priority. So just switch it.
Got it.
Because then it'll read like a list. Because right now it reads like this. It's just a little confusing. Because it says time relevant. So it looks like it's like that there's something else than what it is. Yeah. So when you explain it to me, I understood it. So then these are examples, and I would actually take examples and I would put a return, and I would put the examples underneath. So say 1 and then examples, and then you would push over the members' abuse of authority and infiltration, so that you can know that those are examples immediately, so that everybody reading it will know exactly what they're reading very, very quickly.
Yep.
Cool.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll change the formatting when I have better Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So that's just very, very minor. But yeah, so overall I understand it. I mean, it took me a little while to understand what I was even looking at, but now that you explained it, I understand it perfectly. It makes perfect sense. Obviously, I'm more focused on long-term plans and everything. And so it's like, hey, well, we need to get through all these other things first to make sure we...
No. Actually, no. So this is... I didn't write it down here yet, but what I'm thinking is that there should be... I didn't put it in because it felt a little too formulaic, but the first thought I had was we could have meetings dedicated to checking on things that could be harmful, like twice a week. And we could have meetings about time-relevant stuff once a week or once every other week. And we could have meetings about expansion and long-term plans once a month. And it's not that you can't do long-term planning until the other things are dealt with. It's just that the other things get looked at more frequently, and the long-term plans get looked at like once a month or whatever's reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I like it. It's very structured. I wouldn't say it's bureaucratic, but it's very structured. And so sometimes that can be difficult for some people. But in the context of loving it and having that space over the month, you know, where some things happen monthly, some things happen weekly, it's very, very high level, like, you know, organized, right? So sometimes that can be difficult, but I absolutely love it. I mean, it's amazing if we're able to do that and keep it going. So it's just a matter of like seeing where the interest is and how it is. But the key thing would be, okay, is there a top priority issue that needs to be dealt with? Is there active harm that's happening in the community? If so, then the meeting automatically is set, and then people go there. If there's just one quick issue, then it can happen in 5 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever,
Exactly.
and then it's over because
Exactly.
there's no other issue, and then you move on to the next thing and you go to another session. So for me, this does seem a little bit beyond just strategy team, right? But at the same time, it shouldn't matter. I think in some ways the teams kind of get us a little bit wound up and knots, you know. So I think overall it's great in that you could easily set these meetings up automatically, like, and just put them in the schedule so people know they're happening, and then anyone can get involved if they want to. If you have an issue, these are the 2 meetings that are happening every week. With if there's harm happening, and you come and you boom, you address it, and moderators can deal with it in between. You know.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think, and even if it's decentralized and it doesn't have any power to deal with anything, it can still start the process of addressing it. Give people information, like you're saying, about the moderation techniques and different avenues we have, and then it can go to the communication team to get people to the correct location to address it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that is something that could happen already, and then it's great to get the stamp approval of the strategy team, but then you can just go with it and run with it, you know.
Exactly. That's what I'm doing. So we're gonna talk about it on Monday, and it might get tweaked, but that's the gist.
Yeah, very, very cool. The only other thing I would bring up in terms of the agenda is it more of like a update. So on, I don't know which day it is, but I think it was either yesterday or a couple days ago, there was a meeting for the disability group with all the allies and everything, right? For the accessibility. And so even if that's not a topic, it could be like a quick just update on how that meeting went, because it doesn't need to be a topic if they have their own meeting, right? But just
actually, do you see under attendance where it says accessibility tools question pending?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, that's the one.
I actually I just asked them how the meeting went for an update, so I can put it in the strategy meeting agenda too.
Perfect. Yes. So we just want the update from that meeting. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Looks
Yeah.
great.
The request is out, waiting for an answer. Yeah. So this is what we're doing, and then people didn't love the national mission statement.
Oh,
so we were gonna look at that. We wrote.
You know, so the national mission statement is such a huge opportunity to, like, we should do exactly what we did for the strategy team mission statement, except for the communications team. So the communications team should oversee the mission statement, and the strategy team should turn it over. That should be the first project for the communications team, and the communications team should distribute the process out to everybody across the network, like little by little, so everyone knows that this mission statement is being co-created. And then you would schedule, you would make a list of everybody who's interested, schedule a meeting with a smaller group that's going to start drafting it and addressing it, and then they can run with it. So the communication team would help coordinate and get it started throughout the entire network, right? As opposed to just the strategy team, but everybody would be involved, and then it would just help set up, just like we did with strategy team, where we set up that smaller group that then ran with it and then brought back the proposal back and forth until it was more or less finalized. So I think that could be an amazing opportunity to just really build momentum and build national, cohesive, interactive, just like participation, you know, and just get people even more connected. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So that's just my recommendation on.
No, I love that. I love that. I'll bring that up to the communications team again once I can access most of my services, because the Wi-Fi here sucks.
Yeah, for sure. And also, of course, bring it up with the strategy team, you know, because it's.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, this is staying on the agenda either way.
Of course.
But I'll talk to the communications team and see, just to get them on the same page and talk about that.
But the key is simply that the strategy team should not be doing the mission statement. The strategy team. It doesn't have the authority to oversee the mission for the entire GSUS. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yes, I do, and it has right. The strategy team can say we need a new mission statement. This one's not good enough, and then the communications team makes it.
Well, the communications team wouldn't make it either. The communications team would just oversee the process.
That's what I meant. Facilitate the creation of it.
Yeah. So it would happen decentralized. It would happen basically its own group, and you kind of create your own project or whatever, like we did with the thread. So I would actually even also specifically make sure that the people who were involved in writing the strategy team mission are told about it. You know, can see if they want to do it again because they were great. Very, very cool.
I feel like it's a greenfield one. I want to say that.
Oh my god, my the tow trucks are dicking us around apparently. Oh,
did you say the tow truck is there?
No, the tow truck is dicking us around. That we've been waiting for I mean, I started this call after we got here, and yeah. Anyway, I appreciate your feedback.
One question: where do I send people about the communications team? If there's nowhere to send them, I'm just gonna like link you.
Yeah, I'll give you yes. Hold on a second. Let me make the
Is there a thread or no? It doesn't exist yet?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna. This person right here is talking Discord? About that. Is working on a communication team. So, anyways, Lu Bu seems very interested in a national circle that is coordinating and communicating between everyone. So that sounds really cool. All right. So I had one other thing I wanted to say related to some of this stuff, but yeah. I don't. If you had anything else you wanted to go through first.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So the only other thing I wanted to say is that, and let me note down here, so like national mission statement process. So it's perfect for the strategy team to talk about the process for the national mission, and then hopefully help empower the communication team to kind of take it on as a project of its own. It would be really, really good. But anyways, either way, all good. So the other things I wanted to say really quickly were related to going back to like the conflict. Okay. So
yes. I meant to say to be clear, not be clear. It was on a directive. There we go.
Totally.
Changed.
Nice. So in the context of the conflict, because I think everything comes back to conflict resolution and mediation and addressing problems and issues, and that is also the core of sociocracy as well, and just in general, good organizational and movement organizing. So in the context of making that a priority and addressing it, we don't know where that's supposed to go yet. And we did create a project at one point about generally having a space to address mediation stuff to give people more resources. So that's something we could talk about as being a place for that. But overall, that is a huge flag in our overall picture. So in the context of what I want to share in terms of some of the issues we're facing, well, there's two things that I want to share. One is the decentralized model that we use in our decentralized cooperative system that we're building, right? And again, the models that I work on, I've been working on for decades, are all experimental and are not necessarily successful in any way whatsoever. It's just a matter of experimenting with decentralization since it's so rare to even find, and that's why it's so cool to see GSUS. But GSUS, there's a lot of decentralized components that are not implemented, okay? And one of them addresses this core issue. So let's say there's no way to get rid of these 3 people, right? And there's no way to address the mediation, and maybe you don't even need to, because the mediation is just like, you just want to be heard, you want them to be heard, and it'll help ease tensions. But it's not necessarily, it might not solve the problem of the core issues of the acting out and the other issues, right? Yeah. And so in the masculinity of like trying to control things, people just there's certain people who just always will tend to go towards that kind of thing, right? So the question is, how do you address that in the end? And there's two.
Say that again.
The question is, how do you address that in the long term, in the end, if there are internal discrepancies related to strategy and just other issues of working together, right? Because controlling things versus having things be open versus all these other things that people sometimes don't mix. So in our decentralized models, it's all about documenting decision making, and then once you have that ability, you can organizationally fork, right? So in the idea of making sure states are functional on a national level, we already understand that everything's very decentralized. And we understand that you can split off and even create new organizations, new projects, new things, new teams, new whatever, and it's all perfectly fine. But on the state level, it's kind of like this is the chapter, and there's not much other option, right? But
let me. I have an idea, but I don't know. It's very confrontational, and
there's two components that I wanted to share, but let me just finish the first one in 10 more seconds, and then I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll do the other one after. So basically, it should be possible to immediately take a group. You said originally there were 17 people, and if there's a difference of how the group could function, you could easily split into two groups, like 5 each. And if you could find 5 people other than these other 3 people, you should be able to, in essence, have 2 separate Massachusetts chapters to allow people to join in understanding that they're slightly different in how they function, and it's just allowing that those basically to be 2 separate projects and to have, and that is the essence of decentralization, that you can fork and you can split off different groups working differently, and it's perfectly fine, kind of like what we do at the national level, except at the state level. Anyways, I'll stop there for now. Try.
Yeah. I mean, so it's basically that, right? So I don't need to fight with them about what they're doing. If what they're doing is aligned with what we are doing and they don't want me, they're there free to do that without me. Like if this conflict means we are just 2 people that don't like each other and see each other as minimally as possible, that's fine. But I have doubts about whether or not they will come to the table in a way that says they are willing to open themselves to ideas of decentralization and dissent because of how it's gone so far. If they do not, I am hoping that I can come in, and I have an event. I'm working on an event that I think will allow people more options than, because a lot of people are leaving because they don't like the 3 people that are being very authoritarian.
But that's my whole point here, is that in a decentralized model we need to function decentralized. So what that means is that in the co-op model, when there is an issue that concerns everybody and it's like preventing things from moving forward, in our model we immediately initiate the conflict evolution. We use conflict evolution because it's an evolutionary process / conflict resolution, right? And then we move forward with the 2 groups because we don't have time to stop, right? So it's like it's not possible in this movement for anyone, whether it's one person or a bigger group of people, to prevent things from moving forward in a way that is it's like, if you want to do your thing, that's fine, but then you need to be focused on the work and the energy and the excitement, not focused on the 3 problems. We know what the 3 problems are, and so yes, we set that aside and we address that over time to address the mediation, the conflict, and all the issues. But then simultaneously, the focus should be on the other 15 people, or in your case, the other 14 people. So it doesn't matter whether you find 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, but you should be able to immediately schedule sessions that those 3 people are not necessarily invited to, right? Unless they meet certain criteria, and then work with other people, make sure that they know that this is not how it will always be, that issue and those conflicts is not normal, right? That other states are not dealing with this. This is a little bit of a different situation. And so in our decentralized model, we are empowered to create our own group. And that own group is part of the Massachusetts whole, as well as the other 3 people and everyone who decides to join their group. And that we have a decentralized model, but you don't have to wait for that. No one has to give you permission to do that. It should be automatic and it should be immediate, because we don't have time to deal with solving this long-term problem. And what's so beautiful about that is that when you fork and when you have 2 groups, and then you have a simultaneous mediation problem between them, they can exist in parallel for a while, and then eventually, maybe it takes a month, maybe it takes 2 months, maybe longer, they can come back together when the issue is resolved. But then everything is able to move forward, because otherwise everything just grinds to a halt and stops for 2 or 3 months, and then you never know if it's ever going to restart again, which makes no sense in movement organizing or decentralized organizing, right? So I would say that your focus shouldn't be on these 3 people and trying to address them. Your focus should be on the other 14 people, and even just finding 1 or 2 or 3 to schedule with and work with and make sure that they understand there's other ways of doing things. Yeah.
I agree, and we're there. Like, I'm doing it. I'm working with other people that are invited to those meetings that are not among the 3 organizers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, to make an event happen. I'm also reaching out to other activist groups that are aligned with us to see if they want to work on this event collaboratively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I mean, it sounds like it's moving
yeah.
forward. So, but it's just like make sure to do and both, and
Yeah.
you know, and it's difficult with the server, but I would assume that both groups could have channels in the server that should be functional and be able to communicate and do.
They're not in the server. They're not talking to the national server at all. They went to their first welcome meeting on Sunday, a week ago.
Well, but
Well after they had begun meetings, they hadn't read the code of conduct. They hadn't read the welcome packet, and they were.
But which state server? Is this a Massachusetts state server?
Yeah, they're in there, but they don't talk in there.
But where? How do you invite everyone to the meetings? How do they come to the meetings if they're not in the Discord?
They handed out flyers.
They came to a GSUS meeting from a flyer.
No. I'm sorry. The three organizers. One of them joined the Massachusetts server in February. The other two joined after their first meeting that they ran. I assume invited by the first one. From other activism they had done together before that. And then the three of them made flyers about a GSUS meeting, handed them out, and got 17 people to go. Those 17 people, for the most part, have never seen the server, still haven't seen the welcome packet, never, there was no explanation of what GSUS is to those people that had no idea what they showed up to.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it was weird.
But
weird.
That is very interesting, and I understand now more of what you're saying in terms of them representing something that they didn't themselves have a right to represent per se. You know, very interesting. But also I feel like the most important thing is just organizing Massachusetts and having events on the server, regular sessions with everyone attending. You know.
No, but they're not telling the people that do go to the meetings that there is a server to go to.
Well, that's just really weird, you know?
It's really weird. But
is the server doing its own organizing and setting up its own meetings?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's it. But it's just I was my first meeting, because I knew how busy May is for me. My plan was to start meetings the beginning of June.
Got it.
Okay. I have a reservation already for June 7th.
Great. Okay, cool.
You know what I mean? So like I was already doing that. That reservation for June 7th has been established since February.
Cool.
They just jumped the gun, you know, and that's okay. That's okay if they did it well.
Yeah.
I honestly don't want to run in-person chapters. I find much more satisfaction working at the national level about big picture strategy, long-term goals, and streamlining of communication and education materials. That's where I thrive.
Yeah, well,
you know, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, well,
you know, so
that we should have more national empowerment and motivation, and not motivation, momentum going on, where people can just get involved at the national level, and then there's the spoke out to the local levels and state levels, and then it also comes up, and it's just like, I mean, for me, I love local and bottom up, but I'm all about decentralized, where it's basically, you know, bottom up, middle out, you know, and even sparkle a little top down here and there, but usually it's bottom up, middle out. You know, most things are bottom up, middle out. But in the context of this, I think that, you know, the plan is June. Like June, everything will come together. You start building the state Discord up and get it all organized, and then you know, just pass it off to whoever comes to those sessions, and they can continue going, and then they'll deal with these other people who are doing the other in-person meetings or whatever. So I think
it's just frustrating because so they collected 170 email addresses, and like they're not using them, which is fine, except that I sent a thing on Friday afternoon about an emergency protest on Friday against ICE, and I was ignored. So I'm like, did they not see it, or did they decide that because they hate me, they're not going to promote an anti-ICE protest that I didn't even start? I'm just the messenger. Like, because they don't like me, are they refusing to send out information about what we're doing because it came through me. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Very frustrating. But it sounds to me like there's plenty of wiggle room to work with here. So basically what I'm hearing from you is that they're mainly focused actually in-person meetings.
Yes.
So that is huge because it gives tons of flexibility. So look here. There is no way that Massachusetts meetings are ever going to be in person, right? So the Massachusetts server and the Massachusetts meetings themselves are basically all coordinated through Discord, and then you have like, you know, Western Massachusetts, Central Massachusetts, Northeastern Massachusetts, Metro West, Southwest Massachusetts, Greater Boston. So you have all these different regions of Massachusetts that will each potentially have their own channels and or coordinated groups and even their own, you know, Discords eventually. And then within those areas you might have actual physical, you know, sessions in various neighborhoods or cities or groups, right?
Yeah.
And so basically in my mind, this group of 3 people is almost 2 or 3 levels disconnected from the level that you necessarily want to work on the Massachusetts wide server coordination. So they would be coordinating a subgroup. So what, they're in Boston, you said, right?
No, they're in Western Mass like me.
They're in Western Massachusetts. Okay, so Western Massachusetts would be the region. And so within the overall server, it should have Western Massachusetts. So you just happen to be in the area where they happen to be organizing locally, right?
Correct.
And so you personally could choose not to be involved in their local group. They could do their local group, and you could be involved in the broader Massachusetts, connecting, you know, all of the different regions together, and then also connecting that nationally. So I feel like there is plenty of wiggle room in this space, in the relationship with a lot of the other leadership in, you know, GSUS. There is a big push for local, but there cannot be a forced, you know, directive of forcing people into actual local in-person places that they don't feel safe per se. So that wouldn't make any sense. So I'm not worried about that, but I think overall there is a little flexibility, because I was under assumption that they were basically trying to control all of Massachusetts, but that is now clearly not the case.
No, it is the region.
Yeah. So that's a
but
little bit easier.
But they're not talking about what GSUS is though, like that. And then, you know, so I agree with you with everything you just said about, like, I don't need to be in their group. I can work on this stuff, and then we can, you know, disseminate information, and they can handle the local chapter in-person stuff. That would be fine. But that's not what's happening, because they're not doing anything to do with GSUS. They're doing a centralized bottleneck of authoritarian power.
Yeah, so it's very, very, very strange and very, 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 very odd, right? But although it affects you on a personal level because you happen to be there, if somebody was doing that, you know, on the campus that I live, or in or, you know, in the area of the San Francisco Bay Area that I live, right?
Yeah.
Even though they were in my community and they were doing that and they were representing GSUS and I didn't like it, it technically wouldn't be my personal problem, because it's not my right personally to say what someone can or cannot do with their free First Amendment speech rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that becomes a national problem. So you bring up the issue. The problem, I think, is that but that you don't actually have to deal with the issue because it's not your personal issue, right? You could go out and you could organize your own group for GSUS if you wanted to. I don't have time for that. I'm going somewhere else, and you probably don't have time for that either at this time, and you're more interested in working on statewide and national anyways, which needs a lot of work. So it should be perfectly fine. So basically, you know, if you don't necessarily agree with what they're doing, the best thing is to boycott it and then transfer the ownership of that issue to someone else and understand what is going on with that. And if they are able to meet the criteria, like your goal should be, okay, this is the criteria, go to the national sessions, learn about GSUS, get the welcome packet, become decentralized, you know, make sure you're transferring the right information at your meetings. But then if they don't do that, you can't force them to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like you can keep an eye on them. But I think I would use the 10-foot pole technique. So you do the mediation,
Yeah.
you try to like understand their situation, you report it to national, and then you try to document it or whatever, and maybe even talk to other people who are going it. So you create like a liaison thing. If there are some people who are going to it, they can kind of report back. But then from there, it's no longer your personal issue, because if everyone had to take on personal issues of what local groups were saying in the name of GSUS, it would be completely overwhelming. Like, we don't know, as individuals, we have no capacity to do that. Like, it has to be dealt with at the national level, and at the national level, do we even have a right to the name, and what does it even mean? Do we need to address, trademark and actually legal aspects of people who would be pretending to be us, right? So it brings up a whole nother level of issues where people have actually chosen to not address that and actually have things be more decentralized and not have any sort of rights to any sort of name or any sort of thing, so you could have multiple groups with the same name in essence that are not necessarily competing but functioning differently. So in a decentralized model, basically what I'm saying is you actually could have a GSUS authoritarian group under a decentralized
That's so
model.
funny.
And then
I
you
would
could
love
also
to
have-
refer to them as the GSUS authoritarians. Can I do that? Can I tell that them?
That is
Their
exactly
face?
what I'm saying. And I actually would love, like, obviously I'm super liberal and I'm super like into working. Obviously we're a very liberal organization and left leaning, right? I would love to see one day to build a national or wherever strike group that was very, very red and very, very conservative. Because I think that their point of view is very important for the national strike, and that it's very hard to work with them. It's very hard to communicate with someone who's very red and very, very conservative, but they could be their own server and they could liaison and they could tell us what they're working on and how they're going, but they would be there doing their own thing. And I don't need to be involved in their meetings. I don't need to be involved in their group, but I would be willing to help empower them to start helping and supporting the vision of a general strike for conservative areas with conservative demands and conservative goals that I might not agree with myself, So in that context, I think that there, in a decentralized model, there could be a space for, like you're saying, a GSUS authoritarian group and a centralized group that we don't necessarily agree with or want anything to do with, but, it's a matter of, we don't know what's going to work. So it's a matter of like us proving that what we're doing is better as opposed to forcing them to do something that they don't want to do, Yeah. So hopefully that kind of brings a couple other potential outs to the situation, so that, and then of course they don't control the statewide server, so that's fine. So the statewide server is what it's all about in the short term, And if you need to create 2 channels for Western Massachusetts, it should be able to be done that. And you could even create 2 separate Discords for Western Massachusetts, like one for the authoritarian group and one for like what you're working on, if you want to work on Western Massachusetts as well. Like, I've already created a Bay Area Discord. And we have, I think, 100 people on it so far, and we don't do anything on it. We don't communicate or do anything on it, but it's just there, just in case Bay Area gets more active in the future. But obviously, 99.9% of all of our communications is on the California or the Northern California and Southern California Discords. Yeah. So, anyways, fascinating. I could go on and on about some of the crazy situations that we're dealing with now because we're actively forking our co-ops right now. And it is a fascinating situation, the whole process of forking. This will be like the 2nd or 3rd time we've gone through forking. And if you're interested, I could share that as the last thing. Otherwise, I think we're pretty good for today. It was a really good session. Actually, there's one other thing we could bring up is next week and future sessions. I'm on the side that we should just, cancel them and then come back in 3 months. I mean, you're plenty busy.
Let's take a hiatus. I agree with that. Let's take a hiatus. We got a lot on our plates, both you and I.
Exactly.
And
so
it's been helpful to have other people, but let's just take a hiatus till we're ready to start again. That's fine.
Exactly. And if something comes up in the middle of those 3 months, we could say, hey, let's schedule a one-time recorded session just to document what's going on, right? Which would be fabulous. So, so the next session will be like in August. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so I'll have that
unless otherwise stated.
Unless otherwise, we plan a one-time session, but the next regular one will be in August. And then from there, we'll just allow things to evolve. I'll be focusing on global, at specifically Eurafrica, and scheduling that meeting, and then reporting to communications and how that goes. And then just so we'll still be working together. We'll still be communicating. We'll just see how it evolves. And then if you want to have a few more minutes, and then we could check out but I could just tell you a little bit about what's going on with our co-op model as like an example of some of the
Yes.
issues we deal with. So, and then let's check out. So I'll take like 2 minutes and we'll check out. So obviously I could talk about it for literally days because it's so many things going on. It's related
A
to
lot.
I mean, we have thousands of contentious decisions that are all documented and have this continuity, right? So in the context of like the most recent, and we're totally dysfunctional and everything's a huge mess and like we're not even, it's like a mess, right? So the current fork and the current core, it's like you can block. When you block, you're required in the consensus process to have a reason for why you're blocking that is a core value. Like some sort of principle or core value has to be broken in order to block. Like you can't just say like, oh, I don't like that, I block. It's like, no, you can't block something that you just don't like. You have to actually, it has to be against the mission statement and against the core values. So this core value that's being addressed right now is the idea that everybody across the entire world, because we're global, right? That everyone across the entire world should be paid the same exact amount of money and have the same exact amount of value. And that concept is fascinating and very complex and very, very passionate and engaging, you know, for people everywhere. And basically the idea is what we would call equal amount of money, but unequal time. And then the model that we currently use is what we call equal time and unequal money based on jurisdiction. So if you're from the United States and you're first world and you need to live, you need, you know, $2,000, $3,000 a month to be able to not be homeless, right? And then you go into another jurisdiction like Bangladesh or something, where people work with all around the world, and they live on $200, $300 a month, right? And so for them to have a house, they're able to have a house with a couple $100, right? So, and have their food and meet their needs for the family, all that kind of stuff. So in the context of the problem is that if, let's say, everyone gets $1,000, you get $1,000 in the United States, you get $1,000 in Bangladesh for doing the same work for the same skill level, the person in the United States goes homeless and the person in Bangladesh has 3 houses, right? So it's basically like some people think that that's the way it should be. And we just have to deal with that. But it's such a core value change, it requires under our policies and processes to fork. And so you split apart everybody. So you empower that group and say, okay, let's raise money and build a group where we empower basically everyone across the world. And you disempower first world countries and you empower third world countries to control everything bottom up in essence. And the first world would have no way of getting paid themselves because they would basically end up homeless. So you split up. So you have one group that's overseeing distribution based on jurisdictions where quality of life, and this is obviously my side of things, it's all about quality of life and being able to feed and house yourself and your family. Like, who cares about the money? No one cares about the money. It's just all about quality of life. Money happens to be a challenge that we have to work through in this capitalist society, but it's not the goal. We could have a moneyless society where you don't even need money. It's all about quality of life. And then you have people who are all about the money and are basically saying like, okay, we need the money first and everyone should get equal money for equal, you know, skill. So anyway, it's a very interesting situation, but it grinds everything to a halt because now you have no budget, you have no pay, no one's willing to work. Everything's just like completely falls apart because it's such a core issue and core value.
Right. Yeah, they're mutually exclusive.
Exactly. So it's,
wow, that's a lot. I'm glad you're forking. And that sounds like a positive overall.
It is a positive, and it's actually more than a positive because in the models that we're working with, it is actually the goal to empower every single we break down the entire world to 5 to 10 jurisdictions. So there's thousands of jurisdictions based on each person's city and everything, but then we simplify that into just 5 to 10 jurisdictions for the entire world. And you have some jurisdictions that are basically multi-million-dollar jurisdictions for, you know, our value systems, and then you have some jurisdictions that are only like 50,000 or whatever overall, you know. And so in those contexts, it's just that on every single jurisdiction is interdependent, which means that first world countries cannot own and control other countries that are or other communities that are lower jurisdictions, right? And so each jurisdiction is interdependent, and so the core value of all model that we were already trying to create is that people would have to come up and empower themselves within those jurisdictions to say, no, you guys can't invest in, or you, even if you did invest in it, you can't control us. You know,
Right.
that we own our own cooperative, and
Yeah.
that there's other people in other jurisdictions from first world, they can support and work with us, but they can't be an owner within that branch of the cooperative, right? So it
That's so
basically,
cool.
I know it's an amazing model. So in this context, it's actually a win-win on both sides, because on one side you have a few people who are actually starting to step up and take ownership of their jurisdiction and say like, no, we get to control this. No one else can control it from outside. And then we're building our own equity and our own value within our co-op, and then no one else can own it except for us, and rich people basically are excluded. So in our model, all the poor people across the world can own in the rich jurisdictions, but you can't go the other way. The rich jurisdictions can't own the poor jurisdictions. So it's
Yes, love it.
it's a very interesting model, and so I think it's good, but it's very difficult to just go through.
It's a
all.
lot. It's a
And it could
complicated
take many months.
process.
It could take many months.
Hey,
to
I
go
gotta
through.
go.
Yeah, we're done. We're good. I'll text
Okay,
you. Thank you so much. It was really, really a pleasure.
Thank you too, always. I learned so much from you. You are wonderful. I appreciate you. Once again, safe travels
Yeah.
to you and your husband. Enjoy your family.
For sure.
Yeah, I'll talk to you sometime next week. I'll just check base and see how you're doing.
Yes, thank you
yeah.
too. Like I learned so much for you, and I feel like you bring up some of the most core essential points that have come up in all the discussions I've been involved with. And then from there, I just love that you're helping out with the strategy team, the communications team. So just remember to take time for yourself, balance yourself,
Yeah.
breathe, take breaks.
Yeah.
Like it's a marathon, not a sprint. So
Oh, I know. I wish my vacation was more vacation-y. Instead, it was mostly like me arguing with convention
no.
staff and
Oh,
getting a flat tire.
God, jeez.
But so
Of
be it.
course. Well, there's always next time. So anyways,
All right.
big hug.
Yeah. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Ciao.
Bye.
Yeah.